And one thing that occurs to me about this show is they don't spend a lot of time fighting crime.
It's true. Well, they went and saved that airplane, so that worked. Hey, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We're here talking about The Boys. Season 1, episodes 5 and 6.
Yes.
Good for the Soul and the Innocents.
Yes.
All right. So what we're talking about here, we begin with Pop Claw, A-Train's girlfriend, on the lam in Cuba. We end with Huey kissing Annie and Butcher seeing those events and basically saying, what's going to happen when she finds out you're lying to her?
Yep.
So that's the window of time we're talking about in here. Basically speaking, episode 5 centers around this belief expo, this kind of a televangelist religious retreat thing that the 7 are a part of. Episode 6 centers more around trying to find out Yumiko, that's the one we were calling female Wolverine, her past. And so it's finding Haley Joel Osment, Mesmer, and having him be able to read her mind and tell her past. So those are kind of the two general central things, although a whole lot of plot developments happen. This show moves.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Sure.
Woo woo. All right, so what are your thoughts, sir? Just on these 2 episodes before I launch into some kind of recapping.
I mean, liked it. It's interesting, the world that they're developing. Perhaps it's a little meta, my thoughts, about, it's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, that the person who came up with the comic is, really doesn't like comics, or at least superhero comics anyway.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I mean, that's my impression that I get, and I feel like there's a number of different things, like the Joker movie, that's supposed to be, talking about a villain that, giving his backstory that most people don't tend to do. And I'm wondering exactly how much it's going to relate to the superhero life of Batman. And also Gotham, that made a point of doing Batman's story before there was Batman. Okay. And it's like this weird thing where, now there's so many people who are like, I don't like superhero movies or TV shows or superheroes, and so I'm gonna do my work that is really savaging it. So it's just it's another thing of it's certainly. I think they're doing a good job of laying out the world of this, where you see the result of all these superheroes, but it doesn't feel like it likes superheroes actually.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's laughing at the idea of altruism. I mean, you've got Starlight maybe as the one person who seems to be like, I'm in it for for truth and justice. Right. But for the most part, you've got a world where it's just all BS, where nothing really matters. It's like, no, people don't just do things for these altruistic reasons. They've got all kinds of horrible motives.
Yeah, and actually, I guess it's interesting that they featured her disillusion with her religious past, and that she actually doesn't feel good about being part of the doctrine that they're expressing, and certainly not in terms of her own experience, sexual experience and all that. But it's one thing that occurs to me about this show is they don't spend a lot of time fighting crime.
It's true. Well, they went and saved that airplane. So that worked.
Well, that's right. That's one of the things we get is them going to the funeral.
Right. That's Homeland.
And he really tries to sell Maeve on the idea that it's good that they lied about.
Yeah. Well, let's just move on. We gotta. Remember that time when you threw a pen into that guy's eye? You just meant action.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do. Just basically don't think.
Right.
Just act.
Right.
Let's just act.
I mean, I really want to, I should make an effort to learn the actor's name because I think he's doing an incredible job of portraying Homelander.
Homelander is just the kind of the star of the show of this. He's a villain.
Yeah.
Big time. He's the star villain. Let's put it that way, of this
equivalent
show.
perhaps to JR in Dallas, Larry Hagman.
Okay, didn't watch the show that much, but
you understand the concept, though, where he's the bad guy, but everybody's watching it because he's so bad.
Gotcha.
And ultimately they tried to kill him.
right. Who shot JR? That was like the thing. Yeah, that was like really before phones and Twitter and everything. Everybody was like, spent a year speculating.
It was a dream. Anyway.
He's doing amazing work, and I don't know his name either. I'll put his name down here.
Right.
Okay, great.
But I think, one of the really interesting nuanced things that happens in this is understanding his relationship with Elizabeth Shue.
Stillwell.
It's interesting how he wants something from her, and he wants something from Maeve too, actually, and he's really getting frustrated. We have yet to see anyone with a pure relationship with him that's just good. It's all these people who are he's reaching out to, and yet they're repulsed or afraid of him.
Well, in fact, that very first scene, what we're saying with Popclaw, A-Train kills her, makes it look like she OD'd. Yeah. And the reason he did it is because Homelander told him to.
Yeah, I've seen that scene twice, and I still feel like he's going to kill him at any point. He's like, Homelander's just going to kill A-Train. I
know, because that's a great point. I watched it the second time. I thought, oh man, they really did set it up to look like a mirror of the scene where A-Train kills Popclaw. He's like, I love you, and she says, I love you, and then it's like, ding, and he quickly does the heroin, and she's like, why, and dies. Then you cut to A-Train talking to Homelander. It's done. It's a heroin overdose. Homelander's like, come, bring it in.
Yeah, bring it in.
And they're hugging, and I'm like, oh, he's got his hand on his neck. It's obviously intended to be incredibly threatening. Yeah. And he says, like, I'll be watching you wherever you do. But, like, he says it in that way. It's like, see, it could be interpreted. Not really. But it could be interpreted as, I'm looking out for you, buddy. But, yeah, so that's a relationship where fear, obviously, has made A-Train go and kill his girlfriend and set it up to look like a suicide. Or not suicide. Well, maybe suicide. Suicide/OD accidental. And so A-Train has now gone into, full-on villain category. I'm not sure that we saw him necessarily be a villain. He accidentally killed Huey's girlfriend.
Yes.
Laughed about it afterwards, so you see that he didn't value human life so much. Right. But now he's full-on, I just murdered a woman and, got away with it, essentially. So so that relationship with Homelander has pulled him into the... And we see that the continued theme these episodes certainly spell out of the what will you do to stay in the 7?
Yes.
There's A-Train.
Yeah.
Maeve, again, we see that she actually had a gay relationship. Her real affection is for this woman, and she was forced to, for the sake of staying in the 7, basically have this mock relationship with Homelander instead, and probably had a conversation with Stillwell, you imagine, where she's like, you can't see this woman anymore. She's alcoholic. She being Maeve is an alcoholic, and there's a really touching scene where she tries to go back, like, "Hey, missed you." She's like, "You don't get to say that. Get out of here." But yeah. So again, she's given up her true person. Yeah. She's become this jaded, cynical thing. There's that moment where Maeve is in the elevator with Starlight. She's like, "Oh, so I see you're trending because you're doing the whole, I just want to be me thing." She's like, "No, that's just who I am." But she can't imagine that someone might just say a true thing and not worry about the ramifications. Yeah. So, So in this moment, we do have Starlight stepping up and, at this Belief Expo kind of saying, it's all crap.
Yep.
And I was sexually assaulted. And so that starts this thing where the Deep is then exiled to Sandusky, Ohio.
Yeah, apparently, in the original imaginings of the story, she wasn't going to expose him. And certainly in the comics, it's Homelander that
Right.
abuses her. But because of Me Too, the Me Too era, there's like, you know what? Maybe we can do this story where, he actually is exposed and has to deal with the consequences, at least in terms of the. And you could certainly argue that it's not really much of a punishment, but in a way, I mean, he was somebody who already did have a difficult relationship with the rest of the team. And that he was really struggling to try to find a place and find some importance. Not that I'm sympathetic to him at all, but it makes him more fully realized character. But now, because of that, his actions, then he gets exiled, really, and so it's even worse for him.
Yeah, I think I read an interview with one of the writers who was saying their original idea for Starlight was she was going to be the example of that theme of what would you do to stay in the Seven? And they just basically degrade the character more and more and more. But as they were doing this character, they realized like
it's kind of one joke.
Yeah,
it's actually taking it to a really terrible place.
Terrible place, exactly. So they're like, all right, what if this person enough is enough, and they stop. And they're like, no, I'm going to take back my empowerment.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I mean, I haven't read the comics, but it's certainly a nicer thing for her character. Nice. I mean, I think it's a better dramatic path, I think, for the character.
Instead of just being a joke, essentially.
Yeah. Right. She has, she's willing to give that up. So therefore, that gives her some power.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps, they don't, in the course of the series, really address her path outside of the Seven, but it's interesting though that somebody would be able to dictate something because one of the things I think they're trying to say is that there are certain limits to what they can do as a company, and there's a story that exists, so they have to play into that story.
And as Butcher mentioned a couple episodes ago, the one weakness they have is their reputation.
Right. Yeah.
And in fact, there's a great conversation that Stillwell has with Starlight where Stillwell's basically like, hey, get with the program. And Starlight's like, no, I'm not. And, I just talked about being sexually assaulted here. If you fire me, you want to talk about, a hit, you go right ahead. And Stillwell realizes that Starlight has the upper hand in that moment.
And really it forces them to act against the Deep.
Correct. You're going to make a public apology when he has to try to practice it. Yeah. But that's also, I like as well, we see the Deep doing that when he's practicing. But Stillwell and Homelander do the best at this, which is that the public persona versus the way they really feel.
Right.
You see a lot of moments where, like for instance, in that conversation with Starlight, Stillwell keeps this very neutral face on, like, well, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate you talking to me. After just being told, like, no, go to hell. And as soon as Starlight leaves, it's like, ah! And Homelander does the same thing where they're doing the commercials for like, look how human these heroes are. It's all BS. But he does the whole thing where he's like, my mom, she was the greatest.
Yes.
All right, are we done?
Yeah.
And like that, it's the change to the I'm done being superficial.
Well, that's what in the place where he said he was raised, right? Yeah. Which is interesting actually, because he's actually angry, So he's able to do it, but then he's like, "You're making me," which I think expresses
because there's the blanket. That's what does it.
Yeah. Which his expression, that the little bit that he bit of humanity is angry that he could be manipulated or
what I thought was great about that scene is the scene is he's doing this completely made up boyhood
exploited,
but it's the one thing that's real.
Yeah.
The entire house, the pictures, everything's made up. He's fine with that.
Yeah.
And like, oh look, here's one of the trophies I got. He sees one thing that's actually his, and he's like, fuck you.
Right. Yeah.
The guy gets fired. Whoever put the blanket down there, like somebody just thought, "Oh, this will be good. We'll throw a little personal touch in there."
Yep.
No, really, really cool. I like that concept, and we do see why later. Basically, that blanket was, he was like Linus like on steroids. He basically just had a blanket and nothing else in a room, just waiting because everybody was too scared to interact with him. So that he has this relationship with his blankie, and it symbolizes his isolation. It's also why he resents Stillwell's little baby. Man, that baby seems like is in real trouble. I know a couple of scenes that happened in the last 2 episodes, but I don't know everything.
I do.
But man, I don't know if this show would go there, but jeez, it feels like Homelander might just go zoop and freaking laser a kid, but he wants to. And when they're standing there and she's got the baby outside the hospital and he's looking, just shooting daggers at the kid, I'm like, oh, he's going to laser the kid's face. Oh, God. Oh, don't do it. So he's got these huge issues. And obviously their relationship, Stillwell and Homelander, she says in that moment at the hospital, we need boundaries. But then I don't know. You could tell she's a little afraid in that moment. I'm like, why are you here? And this is my kid. But maybe it's that moment where she decides, fine, we're going to drop the boundaries, because she obviously does not show boundaries later.
Right.
Where there's a bit where she's, basically, they almost went to the, hey, you're at my breast.
Right.
But they she put her fingers in his mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the Oedipal complex thing going on there. Yeah. And so that's what she's using to control him. But man, that is just that's just a dangerous game. Yeah. That is a dangerous game. So anyway, but that's their relationship.
Yes.
At the moment. So you've got the main plot being that the boys go to the Expo, this Belief Expo, because they're trying to get to Ezekiel. Ezekiel, they know, has some kind of insight into how this compound V is being used. It ends up, because Starlight's there, Huey uses his relationship with her to get tickets, VIP tickets to go see Ezekiel. Yes. And all that relationship's interesting too, because he's using her.
Yeah.
And but also, I think is falling in love with her at the same time.
Yeah.
And so as we see at the end of episode 6, Butcher, I think, rightly says, "What's she gonna do?" And she realizes you killed Translucent, and you've been essentially using her. Anyway, chickens coming to roost at some point there, but so gets into Ezekiel. He has to improvise and pretend that he was the one of the guys that Ezekiel had sex with in that soups only bar, whatever, back in the first episode, I think.
Yeah, it was.
And in fact, one of my favorite quotes from these 2 episodes was, so Huey is telling the information to Mother's Milk, like, hey, this wasn't easy, but I got the info. The compound V is at this NICU unit. We got to go over there. That's where this stuff's at. And then Mother's Milk's like, man, you're like the Rain Man of effing people over. So Huey is the Rain Man of effing people over, which was a great line. So they get the info. Another very tense scene where Homelander, who obviously suspects Huey of something, is baptizing him.
Yes.
And is that
that was rather strange there. It's very oh good, I'm gonna really keep you under here. It's like
he's in public, right? Yeah. There's a sense of are you throttling this guy?
It's really not typically when you see it's we'll lay you down, but no, it's down. Keep you down for a while.
Maybe we were seeing it from Huey's point of view, that he was interpreting it as, you're killing me. I don't know, but it's, it seems very violent, and I would have been freaking out if I was Huey at that moment. And then it's, lucky for Huey, it's, an episode later that Homelander is staring at a picture of Huey on a phone.
Yes.
Because if if that had been reversed,
Ah.
Huey probably wouldn't be alive. In that
Probably not.
So they find out, Compound V, it's at this children's hospital. They go, they find out that this Compound V is being injected into newborns, and that's how these soups are created. To get out of the situation, the butcher uses one of the newborns.
Oh, yes.
His laser vision to like kill the... Where it's like not working. He's like, like shakes the baby essentially. And then there is a great moment there where baby has done its job.
Yes.
Killed off I don't know what they are.
Yeah, guards.
They had like automatic weapons.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then he was like, good job. Like, stay in line or I'm going to stomp you. Something like that. Basically like, you're a soup. So I might be coming for you later. Bye, little kid who just killed 2 guys. So now we know that soups are created. They are not born, which is the message that Ezekiel is giving at that moment to this rally where he's like, hey, how did Jesus walk on water? How does Homelander fly? How do I stretch my arms out? It's because we were born this way, and we believe. So that's all BS.
All God's plan to have that.
And then there's the also very terrifying, disturbing scene where Homelander is like floating above the crowd, quoting the Bible. Like, I will vengeance and blood. My feet will bathe in the blood of my enemies. You're like, oh, that's great. Also, he's, he doesn't want to read the moderate speech that Vought's given him because he wants to like be a John Wayne in this moment.
Yes.
And he wants to, blame West Coast elites and foreigners. Yeah. Doesn't sound familiar at all.
No.
I can't see what real life constructs they might have been going for there, but anyway.
Yeah, it's a fantasy.
He was wearing a baseball cap, I believe. So Homelander has taken the opportunity to basically, I am God, and I will strike down your enemies, essentially, as long as they're my enemies too. So the next episode is more. Actually, we'll also find out that Frenchie gets made.
Yes.
Because A-Train sees the footage of the boys talking to Popclaw, and he makes out Frenchie's face. Yep. Frenchie's made. He has to like go on the run. Yep. At the very end of the episode, Black Noir catches up with him, but Yumiko saves the day. She gets torn up pretty good. Yeah. But Black Noir didn't count on the fact that she regenerates.
That's right.
She's very much like Wolverine.
Yeah.
In that Black Noir leaves, and she's like, rup, 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 and Frenchie's like, you're a miracle, or something like that. So we're then trying to find out her past. And the way they're going to try to find out her past is through finding this guy, Mesmer, Haley Joel Osment, speaking of meta, in a very meta role where he was, as a kid, he was on a show called The Mesmerizer, which had like the Law and Order graphics. That was pretty fun. And he's like, he's a police guy that helps the cops and be like, this is your murderer. And so, much like I see dead people. So he's obviously, I guess, at some point got Compound V as a kid and became that's his version of superhero-dom. Yeah. But he's fallen off. He's kind of the ex-kid actor who fell on hard times, and we know that he's been kept away from his daughter for years. And so as give him something he might want in order to help them, Mother's Milk arranges for him to get like a monthly visitation with his daughter in exchange for reading Yumiko's past. That all comes about eventually, and we find out Yumiko was basically like caught, put into a terrorist group, given Compound V. The implication is they were creating a supervillain.
Yeah.
And then she escaped, and basically it's like, that's not what I want to be.
Right.
I happen to have superpowers now, but I don't want to be a supervillain.
Right.
Mesmer has a very touching scene with his daughter where he touches her, and realizes that she doesn't know him enough to even want to be around him. That has no interest in it.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, but he then sells out the boys. He tries to use it to his advantage to be like, maybe this is my in for Vought. So he goes and meets with Homelander, shows him the pictures that he had on his doorbell. He's like, oh, my doorbell phone or whatever, the video camera. And is trying to like, could you put in a good word for me? Homelander doesn't seem that interested in that. But now we know the boys are in real. They were already in danger, but now they're in like
real danger.
Danger.
Big danger.
Big time danger. There's also a subplot where we see, big time, we learn that Homelander raped Butcher's wife. And that she walked away and disappeared 7 years ago or something like that. There's a scene between Butcher and his, I guess, former sister-in-law, maybe current sister-in-law, I guess. They put up a tombstone because it's time to acknowledge that Butcher's wife is dead.
Right.
I think her name is Becca, could be wrong. And Butcher's having none of it.
Right.
Like, nope. No.
Yeah.
Goes to the graveyard with a sledgehammer and breaks the tombstone. He can't bring himself to give up hope in that moment, I guess. And there's a scene where they go to a self-help group. Butcher's trying to basically make Huey wake up in his mind.
Yeah.
To like, don't hang out with Starlight because bad things will happen.
Right.
And so he goes to the support group. We see actually one of the guys who's one of the writers for Vought, one of the writers who was like, hey, you should wear this outfit, Starlight, and here's a backstory for you. Well, that guy had an unfortunate incident with somebody I think they called Ice Princess something, and lost his penis.
Yes.
And so he's lamenting that, but he still loves Ice Princess, and obviously, apparently, he's still yay soups, although he's still going to the support group.
Yeah.
And so that's in some ways the inspiration for Butcher to go like, where's your anger? That scene is pretty interesting where he's like, you guys are just sitting around, like, where's your anger? No, you don't have to accept this. Because he's angry.
Yeah.
He's like, why don't you be like me? Damn it. I'm angry all the time. So we learn a lot more about Butcher's backstory, what drives him, and this level of anger that he can't even acknowledge. Like this, I mean, what does it matter to him if his sister puts up tombstone up? I mean, like let her grieve, but no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Right, and she mentions their grandmother. It's like she wants to go to a place to visit her daughter. It's like, you'd think for that reason alone,
right?
You'd be like, okay, that's fine. In my head, she's still alive out there, but for her poor grandmother, who's probably not going to be around much longer. I mean, come on.
I know, but he's unreasonable.
No, he is.
Right? In that sense of outrage, he can't be reasoned with.
No, he can't.
Which makes him dangerous too.
It does.
So I don't know. That's generally speaking.
Yep.
All right, good. If you've got some thoughts on episodes 5 and 6, feel free to put them in there. We're gonna talk about the last 2 episodes next week. Yeah. Coming down the pike, we've got a couple of things coming. We've got, first of all, Mr. Robot. Right. October 6th.
Yeah, there you go.
We did season 3. We're going to be talking season 4, which is the final season of Mr. Robot. We're also going to be talking about Watchmen. Coming to HBO October 20th. So we're going to get a little double duty there.
Yeah, sure.
And we're contemplating, maybe in the meantime, covering Carnival Row.
Right.
So we'll probably chat about that in the meantime.
Probably will.
But thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.